Here at the Houston Museum of Natural Science, we do a lot of cool things using the sun's energy. From cooking the food we eat to simulating the Martian atmosphere to see what we can grow on Mars using the solar energy available on the Red Planet. You can learn more about these awesome solar experiments by visiting the astronomy department at the Houston Museum of Natural Science. And you can learn much more about what we've got going on at the museum by following the link below in the video description. But you know what? Today I'm really curious to explore something really cool. Is it possible to play retro video games using only the sun's energy? Well, sit back and relax because today we're gonna have a lot of fun learning just what it takes to play retro video games using solar power. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any more awesome content like this from the Houston Museum of Natural Science. Oh, and make sure to share this video and this channel with your friends and family. That would just be the extra ray of sunshine. Speaking of sunshine, let's take this to my roof because that's where the exploration of gaming on solar power really begins. It's gonna be fun, let's go. Okay, so I'm up here at my solar panel array and I'm going to remove one of my panels for this experiment. So I'm just gonna remove one of them to give me 195 watts at 21 volts open circuit so that we can use for our little solar gaming experiment here. Should be fun. I might blow up. So now my solar panels are dead. I've disconnected it from the main charge controller in the house, so I'm not charging my battery at all right now. But that's fine, it's a gigantic battery. Alrighty, let's get this down. That's not so bad. Okay, so I have my voltmeter set up here to the correct DC setting. I've got my leads from my solar panel, but I just want to demonstrate that this is a 12 volt panel, but you'll see that the open circuit voltage is actually closer to 20. There we go, about 19.9 volts. And if I put it in direct sunlight, that would go up to about 21 or so. So I just wanted to show you the parameters, the specs for this solar panel, and that our open voltage circuit was well within range. I will highlight it here in the video. The rated specs are for 22.8, around there, so we know that this panel is working fine. That 22.8 should be in direct ideal sunlight. So again, we know this solar panel is working fine within its parameters. I have my charge controller here, my solar panel here, and my battery right here. So let's go ahead and hook up the solar panels to the charge controller. So I have the negative lead of the solar panel going to the negative lead of my charge controller. By the way, I will go into more depth about this later on, but you never want to hook up solar panels to a charge controller without the battery being hooked up first. Let me summarize that. Always hook your battery up to a charge controller first before the solar panels. Okay, so I have the negative lead hooked up to my charge controller. Now I'm going to connect the positive lead. So I have a nice solid connection, and you can see that the solar panel is charging the battery, and the battery is actually already topped up. So you see it going to 13.6 up to 14, sun comes out. So it's got a floating charge on there. The battery's all topped up, ready to go. I hate the display on this thing anyways. It's a black display. You can't hardly see it in sunlight. This charge controller can handle up to 20 amps, so we are good. 20 amps on a 12 volt system, that is. So all we have to do now is hook up the inverter to the battery. So let's get this inverter hooked up properly here. Got some alligator clips that came with the inverter. This is a 500 watt pure sine wave inverter, so it should be just fine for our needs. This cost maybe $50 to $60 or so. 500 watt modified sine wave, which puts out a very dirty alternating current, those are much cheaper. But I'd recommend staying away from modified sine wave if you can. You want pure sine wave. That makes all your electronics super happy, especially inductive loads like motors. So your refrigerator compressor motor, your air conditioning compressor motor, you want pure sine wave. Electric fans, you want pure sine wave. That's my son. He's helping.
Are you helping that daddy do science? What a good boy.
Okay, so all we're gonna do now is make sure the inverter's off, and we are going to hook up the leads of the inverter, positive to positive, negative to negative. I like to hook up negative first, so that the electrons have a natural path to flow once I hook up. But here we go. There might be a little spark, that's fine. That's the capacitors charging in the inverter. There was a little spark, you couldn't see it, but you might have been able to hear it. I can't even talk. Okay, so that's our little self-contained outdoor video game power solution. I don't know what you want to call it. This is running video games off of solar power. Let's get a better view. And there we go. Solar panel going into the charge controller. The charge controller keeping the battery topped up, and the battery supplying nice, even, beautiful voltage to that 500 watt pure sine wave inverter. Now all we got to do is plug in a surge protector to the inverter, and let's play some games. But first, we need to do some testing. Let's do some science. Okay, so as I set the main attraction here down on the table, what I'm doing right now is called an energy audit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook up the devices we need to play video games with, so the TV and this NES here, up to this common watt meter. I've got the watt meter plugged into the wall. There's an extension cord coming out of the wall, so it's coming, from the grid, from the city's power lines. And then I have this power strip plugged into the watt meter. So anything I plug into here and turn on will show me how many watts we are pulling from our energy source. Just gonna plug in the Nintendo's power adapter right there. And you can see this is a good example of phantom power draw or vampire draw. So this adapter from 1980 whatever is pulling almost 2 watts out of the wall, 1.84 watts, just sitting here doing nothing. There's devices all over your home that do this. Modern technology is a bit better about this, but still there are vampire draws around your house, and this is a good example of one. All right, let's plug it into the Nintendo. You can see it jumps up a little bit and then goes right back down. That's probably the capacitors and such in the Nintendo becoming activated. So let's go ahead and power on the Nintendo and see what happens to the watt meter. So we see that the Nintendo, and I'm getting the red flash of death here. Yeah, it's probably dusty. This is my Nintendo from the mid 1980s. That actually is not that great for the cartridge, but whatever. I'll deal with that later. Also, we could be using any device here. When you're trying to use something off of solar panels, off of an inverter, off of a battery, basically anything off-grid, unplugged from the wall, you want to do an electrical audit, an electricity or an energy audit with a watt meter to see what size of inverter you should get. And I've got a feeling the 500 watt inverter that we have right here, the pure sine inverter, is going to handle everything just fine. But I want to put the big daddy load onto it now, which is not the video game system. It is this old school TV. So let's plop that down here. Awesome. This TV, by the way, came from the George Observatory. If you don't know already, we've been renovating and updating. So these old CRT TVs, that's not modern, but they work great for vintage video games. They also draw quite a bit of electricity, so let's see how many watts this TV pulls out of this watt meter. I'm gonna plug it in up here. Just plugging it in surged to over 43 watts. It's not even on yet. The phantom draw of this TV, you can see, it might settle in a little bit, probably will settle in, is going to be a few watts. But let's go ahead and power the TV on and see how many watts it actually pulls from our energy source. Right now we are pulling about 32 watts. Remember, you always want to round up, but there's not much going on the screen. There's just this little green video graphic on here. I'm going to change the channels to some static and see if that draws more watts. Because when we're actually playing a video game on the screen, there's going to be more happening, probably going to be using a little bit more electricity. So let's see that actually play out in real life using science. Okay, so we got snow, and you see the watt meter jumped up, not by too terribly much, but now we're going towards 36, let's call that 36. Is it going to jump up a little bit? It's headed towards 36, but I'm going to call that 37 watts. So what I'm going to do now is wait for the mosquito truck to pass by. There it goes over a little bit. I'm still calling that 37. So I'm going to turn off the TV for now, and I'm going to plug the Nintendo into the power strip, and I'm going to turn both of them on. Quick note here also, both of these devices are technically off, but we're still getting about 6 watts, 7 watts or so of vampire draw. So let's turn these on. Here's the Nintendo. Okay, there we go. I think we're pretty much settled in. We're settled in good enough to call it. It fluctuates a little bit, but let's call that 45 watts. And just to be extra safe, just to have a little bit of overhead, I'm gonna call that 50 watts. So this setup right here is pulling about 50 watts. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna plug in the controller. These old NES controllers are passive, meaning we shouldn't really see a spike on the watt meter. But I'm curious, will we see a spike or not? We shouldn't, but let's see. Only one way to find out. Send it. This is not generating electricity, nor is it drawing electricity effectively, so we didn't see any increase on the watt meter. You know what? I'm gonna hook the Nintendo up to the TV. Just get all the cables in place so we have a scientific foundation for how many watts this is going to pull from our energy source. Oh, any other 80s babies out there? That brings back some memories. And if this NES doesn't work, then I'm gonna plug something else into it and we will go from there. But all right, everything's plugged in. The screen is doing its flashy. We can see that the wattage draw is actually a little bit less. That's probably because it's flashing like that. It's probably because the snowy screen draws a little bit more power because it's a little bit brighter. There's more going on the screen. In fact, I am going to test that theory right now by going back to the snow. Yep, our energy usage goes up by a few watts. So again, we're pulling about 45 watts, let's call it, but let's say it's 50 watts just to be safe and give us some headroom. Okay, now what I'm going to do, and it's cloudy, but that's not going to matter too much because we have that battery that has stored the sun when the sun was out. And technically the solar panel is still putting out some trickle charge going into the battery. But right now we're going to hook up this power strip to the inverter. There we go. I'm going to turn on the inverter so that we see we're getting power. There we go. And there's no load on the system, so we are showing 0 watts. The TV is settling into its vampire draw, around 5 watts or so. Bring in the NES into the picture. Let's go ahead and plug that in. And the NES. I'm trying to get this all in one shot so that you can see there's no power cables coming from a wall anywhere. This is all one self-contained system. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is turn everything on. I'm gonna turn on the TV and turn on the Nintendo. I'm gonna tell you what the battery is reading, the voltage from the battery is reading. This charge controller will tell us how many volts are on the battery. Because what happens is when you put a load onto the system on the battery, the voltage of the battery will drop, but it should still remain above the 10 volt requirement for the inverter and give us a nice steady supply of current and of voltage. So right now, before turning anything on, with just the vampire load being pulled out of the inverter, we are at 12.9 volts. And I'm going to turn on the Nintendo and see what kind of sag we get. Still at 12.9, well, 12.8. It's fluctuating, 12.8, 12.9, because that's really not much of a load. When I turn this TV on, that load's gonna drop. We're not gonna be at 12.8. We're probably gonna be, I would guess, around 12.5, 12.4, but only one way to find out. TV is on, we are pulling about our estimated wattage. As the TV warms up, it should go over 40 to our 42-ish watts for the total system here. So that aspect has remained unchanged. The voltage on the battery right now under load is 12.6, 12.7. It's fluctuating, and it will drop slowly down as we consume the battery. But if the sun was fully shining, that 40 watts, this panel puts out 195 watts. It is way more than enough wattage, not only to power everything in the system here, but to keep that battery topped up and full, so that when the sun goes down or it's cloudy right now, we still have plenty of energy stored in that battery to keep us gaming for quite a while. I say quite a while because it depends on the size of the battery. All right, so I actually changed it to the correct input. And this game isn't working with this NES. Let's try one more blow. I don't imagine that's gonna do anything. But let's see, kind of in and out a couple times to get the contacts nice and get those electrons flowing. Let's see. Nope. I think it's something else going on here. I don't think it's just the game. But let's try one more game, just in case, and we'll move on to a different system. Let's try golf. Yeah, that's about what I thought. All right, let's move on to a different system. I'll be back. The venerable PlayStation 2. This being the PlayStation 2 Slim model, of course. The last time I played this, which wasn't that long ago, it worked. So that's good. I'm gonna actually unplug the TV because, like the other systems, I want to see what kind of vampire draw the system pulls. So far it's pulling half a watt. See, as we progress through technology, there's less phantom draw from our power source. That is just modern achievements moving forward and forward. All right, so let's turn on the PlayStation because I want to see how much power it pulls from the wall. I don't imagine it's going to be much. It's on. It's definitely more than the NES and SNES, that's for sure. So it pulls less vampire draw, but it definitely pulls more power once it's up and running. Still, with the wattage, the 42 watts or so added from the TV when I turn it on here, we'll see that we're perfectly within the limits of this 500 watt pure sine wave inverter. And this is on, so hopefully we get something on the screen. Please. Don't know why I'm singing the A-Team theme, but oh, come on, controller. I swear, dealing with retro gaming is so frustrating. But at least we're seeing an output. At least we know it's working. Okay. Browser. Oh, when's the last time you saw the PlayStation 2 browser? This could not be read. Yes, I know that. Burnout Revenge, Gran Turismo 4, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, NHL 2007, Fighting Evolution, Shadow of the Colossus. Oh, there are some good game saves on here. SSX Tricky, Final Fantasy X. Come on now. I'm getting sidetracked here. Ico. Let's see if we can clean the disc though and get it to recognize. A little quick wipe of the disc. I feel like a little kid. Now, you might be thinking, before I get this going, you might be thinking that, okay, you're pulling 61 watts or so out of that inverter. A 100 watt inverter should work just fine. It depends on the quality of the 100 watt inverter because as you saw when we first plug in the TV and first turn on the TV, there's initial like big surge of power. And little cheap 100 watt inverters would see that surge in power and trip themselves. They would shut themselves off. This 500 watt inverter is a continuous 500 watts, but it can also peak to 1,000 watts. So I would say if you wanted to run a setup like this where the TV's pulling 45 watts and your video game system's pulling X amount of watts and you're under 100 watts, I would still say aim for at least probably a 200 or 250 watt inverter, 300 watt inverter minimum if you want to run a small TV like this and a vintage video game system. I think that's a much safer bet. And they're really cheap, so you won't go wrong with that. But how many people are going to watch this video and then go out and bust out their old NES and play on their back patio? What we're doing here is we're learning about electrical draw, energy usage, and what you can and can't do with solar energy. And as you can see, we can have quite a lot of fun with solar energy. But it all starts with knowing how much power you need. Yeah. I remember seeing this for the first time in like 2001 and saying, we're never gonna get better than this. Graphics will never get better than this. I just want to get some footage of actually playing a video game on solar power. Let's take another reading of what the battery voltage is, and it is 12.5 volts. The solar panel is actually still putting in 0.3 amps into the 12-volt battery, and it's about dusk right now and it's cloudy. But look how much we're pulling now that the game is loaded up and that we're actually into it. We're pulling about 73 watts. Good to know. Okay, so we are officially gaming. We are officially retro gaming in an off-grid solar setup, pulling about 70 watts in this case, this small TV and this PlayStation 2. But we're going. It's working. And we have virtually infinite power. That is so cool. But what about retro handheld gaming, like this OG puke green screen Game Boy here? Retro handhelds like this are usually powered by readily available rechargeable batteries, and those are super easy to recharge with the sun. Portable USB solar chargers like this are readily available and can be used to keep rechargeable batteries topped up. The best part is a portable USB solar charger like this can be used to keep a number of devices charged up. Devices like your Switch or Switch Lite, even your smartphone, tablets, and some computers actually. As we've gone through this video having fun learning about how solar power can keep us gaming away from a traditional power outlet, I hope your curiosity has been piqued along the way. We used video games here as an example, but solar energy can be used to power lots of different devices. Some devices keep us comfortable in a power outage, and some devices can actually be used to save your life. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe because I've got another video coming up explaining solar power in depth. Everything from powering a small device like your smartphone all the way up to an air conditioner. We go from beginner to more advanced, but it's all explained in a fun, approachable way. You won't want to miss it. Be sure to visit the Houston Museum of Natural Science soon, especially the Weiss Energy Hall. That's one of my favorite spots in the whole museum, and you can learn all about all energy, from coal and oil to renewable energy like solar power, hydroelectric, geothermal. It's really cool. You can also tap that link in the description below to learn more about the cool things we've got going on at HMNS. Thank you for watching, and remember to never let the sun set on your curiosity.